Greetings and good vibrations, my brothers and sisters and non-binary travelers. It is the Hippie Judge in the shade of this Bodhi tree, transfixed on a crisis, crying to be transmuted into an opportunity. So allow me to transmit an insight that will transpose our discord into the transcendent harmony that is a symphony of consciousness. It is high time we talk about trans. Yeah. This hot rainbowy issue has plucked on my nostalgic heartstrings as I recall a sweet love affair I had decades ago in the jungles of Fiji. They tried for years to put my dear Giovanna into a simple category, enchanted by her feminine vibrations reverberating through the instrument of the male body. She invited me to come alive to the full spectrum of sexuality, a divine lesson that crescendoed into a climactic offering of my sweet nectar to a most exotic flower. I never spoke of my dear Joanna, as I didn't have a reason to until now, because she's an important part in expressing my next insight. Let me remind you what she had reminded me, that trans means beyond, or on the other side of, which is where we need to get to with our day's holy war and its trans manifestations. And this issue hits home with my dear friends Jack and Selena, a couple that have reached out to me for spiritual guidance. They have an adolescent trans child, but each are dealing with that fact in different ways. I emphasize for them the Hippie Judge doesn't spoon-feed solutions, but rather is here to lift their spiritual vibrations to a frequency that allows them to find their own through the high vibes of curiosity and love. Groovy. People, my beloved friends, are a microcosm of the broader holy war around trans. And so if I'm successful in helping them, then that resolution may feed that sacred spiral of spiritual growth. But as it is for Jack and Selena, so it is for all of us. Different perspectives breed different fears. Jack, the conservative one, fears that his trans child is falling victim to a social contagion that may compel her to undergo medical procedures that she may later regret. Falling victim to a growing industry whose focus is on a boosting corporate profits. His more progressive wife fears the alienation of a child in a society composed of those who might reject him, and that the government may create laws that infringe upon his liberties to make choices about his life and body. If you two lovebirds are listening, I hope I got that right, because both your fears are valid, and they are shared by many in this day. So if we can vibe our way to a resolution, your family might serve as a sacred mirror to a broader culture that has fractured into ideological tribes, each unwilling to see the other's perspective, let alone honor each other's fears. That is why I told you to take a few days to really empathize with your spouse, while the Hippie Judge imbibes the magic mushroom for insight. And I did, yeah. But only the first of several insights needed to attain clarity around this most complex of existential quandaries. But the one that spoke through me, through the sacred mushroom, is for Jack. It addresses your refusal to use her preferred pronouns, which ain't her, but him, or they, which is when you ask me, well, how many of them are there? To which I responded, I don't know. Why don't you ask them? And then, my man, you got clever, jiving about the Buddhist principle of non-identification and the younger generation's obsession with over-identifying with this and that oppressed group, and this and that race, and that ever-expanding set of neo-genders like demigirl, pangender, two-spirit, ocugender, coextai, amboneka, gender fuzz, weird girl, and nephibilzion, jinx, tom-tom, are my favorite one, bakasala walla wah! Just like my sweet Joanna, yeah. I agree with you, Jack. That's way too many genders to keep up with. And part of the practice of Buddhism is indeed to detach from the ego in its many costumes, to identify less with things of this world, because the self in its many dresses it wears through a lifetime are ultimately illusions. That's exactly why I told you before you in your slick suit and tied the party on your shiny helicopter yesterday. I had to remind you that in order to give up one's ego, one first had to have one. Take me, for instance. I shared with my friend once during a sacred ceremony that I identified myself to be a gender-fluid, demi-pansexual empath with strong dolphin totem energy, yeah. But that was appropriate with the vibe shared with my friend as we both basked in the trippy afterglow of San Pedro. I submit to you, Jack, we all put on a series of costumes throughout our life to feel a sense of center in this world. For now, I am indeed that gender-fluid, demi-pansexual, empath, dolphin, surfing, hippie judge dude building this court of higher law, while yours is the hyper-successful CEO with a spit-shine suit in the helicopter you flew in on. Your child is at a phase in their life when they are finding the costume that best fits them, at least for now. So you're jiving about your child's ego identification after visiting this island of Pachueo in your shiny $1 million helicopter got me thinking you too have built an identity and may lead by example by detaching a bit from that, as well as your ideological biases and the way you think your child ought to be. Which is why I left you with this question. Do you believe in genderless pronouns as I do? Jack, you're a smart dude, so you may have figured out that I use two in the question itself. Oddly, it's only when you and I are talking about someone else in the third person do we begin to layer gender assumptions upon them, expectations upon their reproductive capability, social roles, aesthetics, or what's up between their legs. But that's the least appropriate time to make those assumptions, you dig? What we need today is a genderless third-person pronoun that denotes another as a creative, moral agent. Nothing more, nothing less. This would solve two problems at once. It would free the traditionalists from having to speak in ways that portray their precious traditional biological model of sex, while allowing others to explore their identity with others who are open to a new and expansive way of looking at sexuality. Because if we got real honest with ourselves, sexuality is that most fragile part of us. A space within where many of us have been wounded. We just go about protecting that space in different ways. To explore that space requires a deep vulnerability that can only be truly appreciated in the context of a relationship that has established a sufficient level of trust. I would never demand that the masses affirm my identity as a gender-fluid, demi-pansexual empath with strong dolphin totem energy. No! That disclosure is reserved for the closest of our friends in the most intimate of spaces. Yeah! For everybody else in the world, I am to you only insofar as I can serve, until we develop a trust that brings us into a deeper and deeper nuance of consciousness. Yeah! So Jack, while I value you as a keeper of tradition, as tradition is an important part of God's unfolding symphony, I invite you to take on the mind of a child now, to playfully accept this insight that began in my love affair with sweet Joanna and ended with this mushroom ceremony. Yeah. My dear friend Jack, what if you viewed your trans child as a reminder that life is not a set of binary propositions? In this world that is increasingly fragmented into a Manichaean struggle between opposing ideological tribes, what if you saw trans people as a reminder that God paints in many colors, that we are not the binary code of a simulation, but all instruments through which this mysterious music attempts to express that divine symphony of consciousness? And what if we could deepen our listening to hear the overtones of the notes in everyone's contributing melody, where the masculine and feminine mixed differently in each and every one of us. And what if in every encounter with your child from this moment on, you came to see trans people as a reminder to further integrate the masculine and feminine within yourself, recognizing that such a process requires a lifetime to master and so is in need of constant reminders. Looked at this way, your child becomes a reliable ally in your journey of spiritual integration, which is one of the grooviest soul assignments one could ever take on. You might even call it transcendental.